This is False Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer, fanside.com. I'm joined today by a man who power ranks all the pigmates, who wants you to go on a hike with him, even though you're going to end up covered in sweat like Peter Bretter out there in Hawaii.
I told you it was a pain in the ass.
Cody Williams, content director, fanside.com. Can't wait to see the puppet show. How are you?
It's getting kind of hard to believe things are going to get better.
It's going to get easier now.
I'm doing good, man. What an intro. I love it.
I know. I broke character there. This is actually a character. I'm actually a much more intelligent person. This is a wig that I just wet every morning.
That's right. Gotta wash
Yeah.
your wigs. It's number one rule of wig care.
I know. Well, this is a house of learned doctors. And, there's no crying in the Kapula suite.
So funny enough, the NC State podcast, she is a doctor of science, PhD, and for when she got her PhD officially, that was my present to her, was a house, like a doormat that says this is a house of learned doctors.
That's wonderful. We just went and got really good seafood or
Hell yeah.
pasta. There we go.
Oh,
And got a little banged up on Tuesday night, and we paid $40 today, and this is false starts.
Sometimes you got to play hurt. We've all been there.
We got to play hurt. I mean, some people play hurt. I mean, just like Peter Bretter getting that piece of coral. No, that was Aldous Snow getting coral in his leg.
It's a piece of coral on my leg.
I mean, that man always played hurt. That was why
Always.
the infants were crying because they were playing hurt.
We don't all have a Kunu in our life to make it all better, you know?
No, we don't. I heard the big dude, the guy who looks like a baby, I think he passed away like within the past year. So
Yeah, 100%. That's very sad. Also, RIP to Gene Hackman, passed away this morning.
yeah.
Apparently was living in Santa Fe just down the road. Didn't know that. But yeah, RIP Gene Hackman.
Rest in peace to Michelle Trachtenberg, Harriet the Spy.
Yeah. Dude,
Yeah.
been a wild week.
It's been a wild week. Wouldn't change a minute. Yeah, we obviously clearly false started here. Just so unbelievably cooked right now.
Doing the Oscars in memoriam to begin false start.
I pour one out and I just pour coffee on like the keyboard. It's like, well, I guess I can't work today. That's fine. Can't pay bills either. Apparently that's what I'm dealing with right now too in this so-called wacky wonderful world. Thank God February is almost over.
Yeah, we needed to be done really quickly.
Has February been worse? February 25 been worse than like what August 24? We're just kicking our ass.
Yeah, I mean it's up there, man. It's been a ride this month, that's for sure.
But we got to find a way to get through it. So we obviously false started. Going with our 1st and 15 with something from Ward Manual's manual. I put together a way too early top 25 heading to spring practice. This is probably do this every so often. Cody will be doing stuff about the draft, which we'll be doing, I think, on Monday's show for 155 plus 44 episode.
That's right, baby.
So yeah, I ranked every team that I think is going to be in the top 25. Cody's seen it. He's going to provide some feedback. So
That's
for
right.
those who are not in the know, I'll rattle it off. I'll just read 1 through 25, and we'll break it down in what quintiles, I guess.
Yeah, let's break it down, boys.
All right. Number 25, I have Boise State. 24, Ole Miss. 23, Texas A&M. 22, Indiana. 21, Miami Hurricanes. 20, Florida. 19, Kansas State. 18, SMU. 17, BYU. 16, Michigan. 15 Louisville, 14 Illinois, 13 Alabama, 12 Arizona State, 11 Iowa State, 10 South Carolina, 9 LSU, 8 Tennessee, 7 Oregon, 6 Clemson, 5 Georgia, 4 Notre Dame, 3 Penn State, 2 Texas, 1 Ohio State. I apologize because I just opened up the tab and I realized it's in descending order because that's how I wrote it.
Hey, that's totally fine, man. And that's how you're going to read it on fansided.com if you need a refresher. So,
Yes.
but so let's start at the top. And I think you have the top three right. Like, I think that those top three are pretty standard. And frankly, I'm at the point now where I can't really nitpick an order of those top three. Like I think that like I probably personally would have Texas ahead of Ohio State, but I don't think it's wrong to have Ohio State one. And just like I don't think it'd be wrong to have Penn State one. Like I think any order that you have those three in is completely justifiable. But I think if you have anyone in the top three besides those teams, you're doing it wrong.
Yes, I think the way that I'm looking at like those three teams have separated. I don't think I can definitively have Texas at one, but I could have them at two or three. One's either going to be Penn State or Ohio State. I go back and forth on that all the time. I really like what Penn State's returning, but how about beat Ohio State like just once? That
Yeah.
would be really cool. Plus, as a guy who used to root for the defending national championship team when they were defending national champions, I kind of feel like at this stage of the year, unless something drastic happens, you feel like you've kind of earned the right to be number one. So
Yeah.
there's the gap between Ohio State and Penn State's not that much. I think maybe that gives them an edge there.
And I think that's completely fair. Excuse me. I will, and this kind of combines two of the quintiles, but I would probably, one thing I saw wrong in the top five, I would probably have Clemson ahead of Georgia personally, just because I'm a little more sure in what Clemson has coming back. I just think that Cade Klubnik really came into his own. They're returning a lot of production, which we will talk about here in a little bit, but like, I just think that things are breaking right for Clemson. I think Tom Allen's an upgrade over Wes Goodwin. And like I have fewer questions about Clemson than I do Georgia. Although if they played on a neutral field, not saying Georgia wouldn't win. I'm just like how I'm looking at those teams now, two teams right now, I have a little bit higher of an opinion on Clemson.
Yeah, I think 4, 5, 6. So I've got Notre Dame, Georgia, Clemson. It's kind of interchangeable. Georgia
Yeah.
beat Clemson, Notre Dame beat Georgia. That's essentially where I came down with that. I mean, I don't see any of them going to number one, but it'll be
Yeah.
very interesting to see who's four.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then going back to what you got right, I think Oregon's in the perfect spot. You have Oregon at 7, and I think that's right where they should be. Like, there are more questions about Oregon than I think people want to realize because they have been recruiting and because they have been getting the talent they have. Like, people are just expecting them to repeat what they've done the past 2 years, basically. And that's not a guarantee this year. You have a really unproven quarterback in Dante Moore coming in. You lost a lot on the offensive side of the ball. Like, there are some serious questions when it comes to Oregon. So I think like kind of having them outside of those top two tiers, those top two groups of three, if you will, I think is the right spot. But I also think that Oregon has enough talent and has done enough to kind of be in that echelon just ahead of like who you have at 8, 9, and 10.
We will be talking about this here in a little bit, but I don't think enough people are paying attention to how much talent Oregon is losing. Like
Yeah.
last year was the year that they needed to win a national title. They didn't do it. I don't know how much of an impact it is that they're not returning so much, but like they're like in the hundreds in returning production across the board, certainly
Yeah.
in the bottom half of the Big Ten. I don't think it's the end of the world, but it might be something.
Yeah, it might be something. And like that's again, like that's I think seven's the perfect spot for that because like we do have faith in the talent and like yes, they're losing a lot of production, but they also have recruited at a level that suggests that they should have guys kind of like a Georgia and Alabama in their heydays, like have them just ready to step in and replace that production. So like Oregon is kind of in that tier, but we also haven't necessarily seen that. And so until we see it, seven's a good spot for them. Right behind them, though, you had to know I was going to nitpick this.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I would reorder this Tennessee, LSU, South Carolina, who you have at 8, 9, and 10. I would probably go South Carolina, LSU, Tennessee, personally. Like, I just think that South Carolina, frankly, proved more to me than Tennessee and lost a little bit less. Like, I understand the returning production numbers might not match that, but I think that in terms of what you're looking at, this is a South Carolina roster who I have a lot fewer questions about than I do Tennessee. And I think LSU and Tennessee are very much in the same bucket. Like it's fitting that they are beside one another in these rankings, but I also think that I have a little more faith. Like I've seen Garrett Nussmeier do it, and I need the defense to come around. Well, I haven't really seen Nico do it, and I also think there's a chance that Tennessee's defense is worse than it was a year ago. So when you factor in all those things, I would reorder those.
Yeah, just looking at other stuff, like I've seen other people rank Tennessee. I've seen their return of production. I may be on like an island, or
Yeah,
I'm really high in Tennessee. Like I've seen people like have them ranked like 15, which I think is
that
low.
that there, that's way too low. Like they're if not a top 10 team, they're flirting with it. Like I don't think they should be lower than 12 in any like rankings.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same with LSU and South Carolina.
Mhm.
It's like trying to figure out that 8 to 12
Yeah.
area is a little more challenging. I know I'm much higher on Tennessee than you are. I think we're I think because like you're looking for like the third next SEC team. It may be LSU, it's South Carolina, but then it's yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean it's gonna be fun because like I do think they're like these teams are grouped together. I don't think that like that's not the wrong part of this. I would just reorder them slightly, but like they are ranked together for a reason, and like I think that they're going to be just throwing haymakers at one another throughout the season, which is going to be a hell of a lot of fun to watch.
100%. And I think what I've got there, like in the middle one with 11 through 15, that is very interesting because it's like you're sitting here and you're like, this is kind of when like the upper crust of the Big 12 starts to emerge.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I think you have the Big 12 teams right. Like I think that's the right spot. I again, I personally would have Arizona State over Iowa State, but I can't quibble with it because I do like Iowa State. So like it's not something I'm like gonna die on that hill or anything like that. Where I think you're the most right here, having Alabama at 13. Way to have the stones, way to have the courage to do that because I think Alabama is going to open the season in the AP top 25 as a top 10 team, and I think that's egregiously wrong. Like they are not a top 10 team based on what we know, what's returning, what some of the issues that we saw, some of the issues that are still persisting with Alabama. I think having them at 13 with the questions that we have at them, that's the exact right spot. So kudos to you for having having the courage to do that.
Yeah, it's like I just don't really have them in the playoff field in most instances. There may be like one of the first four out. We'll see what happens at quarterback. It's you get Ryan Grubb, but you also lose Jalen Milroe, so it's kind of like a net negative there.
Yeah.
If Milroe came back, I mean, I'd have them probably eight. Like it'd
Yeah.
be pretty easy.
No, 100%.
And then you got your Illinois and Louisville. These are two teams that I think everybody's really high in Illinois,
Mhm.
and I think you and I are pretty high in Louisville. I don't think everybody
Yeah,
else shares that sentiment, but I feel like those two teams could have like Illinois can make the playoff, and Louisville can make it to like the ACC championship.
I agree. But having said that, Louisville might be a bit high. Like I would probably
Yeah,
have them like a little bit closer to 20. I would still have them top 20, but I would probably have them behind. I would probably have them behind Michigan and BYU, and kind of basically I would have them like paired with with SMU. Like I would have them and SMU like ranked like right next to each other probably.
yeah. We'll get to Miami in a second. That was the hardest team for me to figure out in all of this, but like yeah, Louisville, Miami, SMU. That's clearly like the next tier beyond Clemson and the ACC at this point.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that kind of opened my eyes to is like how wide that gap really is. Because like
Yeah.
it, if Clemson doesn't win the ACC this year, like I'm gonna be severely disappointed in Dabo and the Tigers.
I mean, you look at the other leagues, like what's separating them in this range. We're talking about Clemson possibly being four and Louisville being like 16. That's a 12 team gap.
Yeah, exactly.
There isn't a gap between the top of the Big 12.
No.
There isn't a gap there's like what a two spot gap maybe between Texas, Georgia. There's not much there.
Yeah,
Same with the Big 10.
yeah,
It's Clemson has to do it. Like
yeah,
I'm gonna be very tough on Clemson this year because I think that they should be able to do it.
yeah,
Um, it's all breaking for them. I guess the next tier I've got what 16 through 20.
yeah,
I feel like I was kind of just throwing darts at a dartboard blindfolded a little bit. I felt really confident about having Michigan pretty high up there because
yeah.
like we're putting so much faith and trust in Illinois to basically take that Indiana spot, but Michigan may have the infrastructure to do that.
Yeah, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. Like the Bryce Underwood factor can't be ignored here because like I'm not saying with 100% certainty that he's going to be the guy immediately, but there's a non-zero chance that happens. And like if that is the case, then Michigan is going like I'm confident enough to say that Michigan is going to be the one to take the power void if Bryce Underwood is as advertised immediately.
Totally. Any thoughts about like the non-power two schools, BYU, SMU, or K-State?
So I probably would have K-State ahead of BYU. Like I would probably flip-flop those two if it was me. And I think I just have a little more I have a little more faith in Chris Kleiman and Avery Johnson developing. Like he did make some strides at the end of last year and like returning a good bit of production. You're bringing back Dylan Edwards, who I think is a really good player at running back. I think that defense should improve from what it did last year. Whereas with BYU, they felt like I don't think BYU is going to be bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think there is way more of a chance of regression with BYU than there are the other schools in the Big 12, the other contenders in the Big 12.
Yeah, there's also somebody I'll talk about later that I'm getting dangerously high on as well. maybe the factor is Jake Retzlaff's kind of like about as close to what he's going to be there,
Yeah.
whereas Avery Johnson just he broke my heart. Just a
Yeah.
teeny bopper hair, just
Hey
the
man, teeny boppers breaking hearts. That's what they do.
breaking hearts like Leif Garrett back in the
That's
day.
right. Exactly. Exactly. Leif
God, what
Garrett, the
a
Coreys, all of them, man.
Corey's.
Put Avery Johnson on Tiger Beat. Let's go.
Yeah. So then I've got Florida at 20,
Yeah.
Miami at 21. I feel Florida's good right there. Miami is the hardest one for me to pick. If Beck is healthy, I mean, they could be like 8 spots higher. And if he's not, they're going to win like 6 games.
No, so I was actually thinking about this the other day. I'm gonna butcher his name, so I'm gonna look this up while I stall for a little bit. But I was
That's
listening
fine.
to Cover Three last night, and they were I can't even remember who it was. It might have been Tom Fernelli, if I'm not mistaken, at CBS Sports, but he was breaking down like the Miami defensive coordinator hire, who is Corey Heatherman. Thank you. I knew
Yes.
it was Corey, but I was like, it starts with an H, but I'm not going to get it right. Heatherman. Corey
It's all
Heatherman.
about Corey's, dude. It's all about
Yeah,
Corey's.
but we talked a lot about Miami's defense last year and how it held them back in a lot of ways, and I think honestly kept them from making the playoff. Frankly, was the defense. Like the offense did everything they should have done to be able to get to the playoff, and the defense was talented enough, but Lance Guidry really put them in a lot of disadvantageous situations. Like, and the point that Tom Fernelli was making was basically if you're Miami in the ACC against everyone except for probably Clemson, you have a matchup advantage when you're on the defensive side of the ball. You don't have like it can be like the Eagles in the Super Bowl where you're just rushing four and just dropping seven into coverage every single time because you have that type of advantage in there. So I think that Guidry being over aggressive really hurt them. Like he was high in blitz rate, he was high in pressure rate, and when you're blitzing as much as they were, teams know that. You just get the ball out quickly, and that's how you're able to generate big plays when you have an open field and space to create there. So you just get the ball out quickly. Heatherman, his kind of background is much more conservative. And I think a more conservative defense is actually really good for Miami. But so that has me a little bit higher on what Miami should do based on their personnel. At the same time, it still comes down to the Beck question because if Beck's not healthy, that S doesn't matter. I almost cursed. I apologize.
When you say Corey H, like is Corey Ham coming back from dead to coach this team?
Hey, you can't rule it out. You can't rule it out. Mario has some
We,
mysterious ways.
I mean, weekend at Birdie's, weekend at Mario's, and this is all
That's
starts.
right.
But I think that's a fair point because like from a talent advantage outside of Clemson, if FSU had its stuff together, then maybe they'd be there. But like for as well coached as we think that SMU, Georgia Tech, and Louisville are,
Mhm.
they don't have the horses that those schools do. So
Correct.
this matters considerably. And I guess really to kind of round this out there, with Indiana, A&M, Ole Miss, and Boise State, the one that really intrigues me is just, I guess it would be Indiana. I'm like, I guess not going to fall off as much as we thought they might.
Yeah, I think actually when you pair like I like that trio together, the Indiana, Texas A&M, and Ole
Ole
Miss.
Miss,
Yeah, sorry.
yes,
I kept wanting to say not Ole Miss, but I knew it was Ole Miss. Anyway, it's early out here in the
that's fine,
mountains.
dude.
But no, like when I look at this, when I look at that trio, I think they're all kind of in the same group where we have the same questions. Like there's a really good chance that at least one of these teams is way better than we think. It's just really hard right now to say which one of those is going to be better. But I also think that the same thing, and particularly with Indiana and Ole Miss. I don't think either of them are going to regress as hard as some people have, like some people think, because they have good coaches, B, they have good infrastructures, and C, they brought in a lot of talent once again. So, like, I do think that these teams are not going to fall off as hard. I think that Texas A&M like has the ability to just kind of prove that they're better than the Texas A&M of old under Mike Elko. So, like, that's kind of the factor with them. But all of these, like all three of these teams, I think they're right to be ranked where you rank them. But they also like, I think if one of these teams ended up inside like the top 12 in the playoff race pretty soon in the season, that wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, right there with you. That's kind of why I had that. I put Boise at 25 because I'm like, I feel like we got to have a
Yeah.
G5 team in here.
Representation matters.
Yes, it does. Even though I like Miami, Ohio, I feel kind of like a jackass for putting that out there. So I'll go with Boise State. Also, Max Matson's a bit of a short king too.
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude. He's
So yeah, he's a cult hero.
That's right.
His dad manages Cobra Kai.
That's right. Sweep the leg, Maddox.
What's it what Brad Quando in a in a
Oh my God.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
uh,
Oh my
Come on, kicker.
kicker.
So I guess I'll ask like two questions before we move on. Is there any team that I left out that you feel like deserves some conversation?
Not really, honestly. Like I having done these rankings, like some of these rankings already this offseason, like you get to like the 22 spot and you're like, there's not many teams I have left to fill in these spots here.
The one I was thinking is Texas Tech.
Yeah,
That's the
and
one. Yeah.
I think that's fair, but also I think there's plenty of reason to doubt Texas Tech based on Texas Tech's history. So like I don't think anyone could have qualms with that necessarily.
I think that's totally fair. And the last question I'll ask is like anybody I have ranked inside of the top 10 in this one that you think could like be not saying this year's like Florida State, but like have a Michigan team, just be like they're not even going to be ranked next year at the end of the year.
Hmm. Looking at this top 10, I as high on them as I am, I think LSU is that team. Because like if the defensive transfer portal haul that they got does not work out, this team is worse on offense. And if with a worse offense, that team's probably going 7-5. So like in the SEC, like I can fully see that. So I think LSU is the one. They're not going to have like a Florida State like just crater season, but like they could have like there is potential for them to have a very disappointing season. I personally always tend to favor the team with the highest variance because I know what that upside could be, and that's just kind of I guess like the gambler mentality in me, I guess.
I would go with LSU and I would throw two others in there for slightly different reasons. I would actually throw Georgia and Tennessee potentially.
Okay, okay. I didn't want to pile on Tennessee because I thought about Tennessee.
No. And this is different. I don't think there's necessarily the variance. I think it's all about schedule.
Yeah,
Tennessee does not have a tough schedule, and if they drop a few games, they're just not going to have like the ability to move. Like if they don't beat Bama or Georgia,
yeah,
one of those two, what wins are they going to have of note?
yeah. I mean, completely fair. And then you throw in, I mean, this is a team that lost to Arkansas last year. Like they are capable of laying an egg in a really bad spot.
And Georgia's still got a really tough schedule. It's a new quarterback. A lot of those games outside of Tennessee are at home, but like you got to beat Bama. You absolutely have to beat Ole Miss, and probably need to beat Texas too. And
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it is like in Georgia's case, I do think that the one thing that protects them is kind of what we saw this past year, where it's like, yeah, like they took a couple losses and yeah, some of them weren't pretty, but at the same time, like that schedule is so daunting that that's going to be used in their favor continuously.
100%. And we're talking about Georgia here. We're going to be talking about Georgia now. We're going to put a dude on the team, bro.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Moving on to our second topic. A little bit of our backyard, a little bit of homerism, just two homers here. We're going to
That's
put
right.
Jalon Walker from Georgia on a team, and we're going to put North Carolina running back Omarion Hampton onto a team.
Hell yeah, we are.
All right. Let's start with Walker. Who do you think he could go play for?
I want to see him on the Green Bay Packers. I think he would absolutely smack on the Green Bay Packers. The Packers, I think, when they brought in Jeff Hafley, they had a little bit of a schematic shift, and so like guys like Lucas Van Ness, who were drafted to play on a different system, they really struggled. The only edge rusher they had like really of consequence this past season was Rashawn Gary, which tracks because he's a pretty damn good football player. But they need some help on there, and I think pairing someone like Walker with his explosiveness with Gary on the other side, like I think that's a really nice combo, and it's a team that needs a pass rush.
I don't know if he'll be available then, but if like he would stop their fall in that situation, that's a great one. I didn't have the Packers in here.
Yeah, that's probably the low end of where like it's where I want him to go. I don't know, like I don't think he's gonna get there. That's probably like the lowest I could see him going to be 23.
All right, just to put it out there, I got to put the Falcons on
Yeah.
here. It's they got to get something if it's either him or Michael Williams. Apparently, Raheem Morris didn't bring a single offensive coach to the combine, only interviewed defensive players. So
45 defensive interviews, baby. I love it.
come on down to Atlanta, Tyler Warren.
Yes, sir. Oh my God, I love it.
But it's like if he's there and you need this position, this is a talent rich this is the best edge rusher draft we've had in a very long time. This is Atlanta's biggest need. Atlanta's the absolute worst at it. Everybody in the NFL knows Atlanta cannot rush the quarterback.
Yeah.
You got to make it happen, but like you have two teams in the division picking ahead of you, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, the Falcons I think make a lot of sense. I'm gonna throw out a team that might prevent him from getting to the Falcons. I went from the low end, now I'm gonna go to the high end. I think he could go as high as 8 to the Panthers.
Yeah.
And like, the Panthers traded Brian Burns before last season. They're definitely like trying to reshape this roster quite a bit. And Walker's the type of piece that I think you could have a lot of fun with. He reminds me like they're different players to be very clear, but he reminds me quite a bit of Micah Parsons, like in the way
Yes.
that how explosive he is and the way he has that linebacker edge versatility coming out of college. I think it makes a lot of sense there. And when you think about when Micah Parsons came to the Cowboys defense, like I hated the pick because I thought they were going to use him as a stand-up linebacker. Then they put him on the edge, and the Panthers have enough defensive holes in their on their defense that they can just kind of move him around and figure out where he's best. And I think that's the best thing for Jalen Walker, given that he's not necessarily like fully developed at either position right now.
I believe he's actually from North Carolina. I think he's from Salisbury, North Carolina. So
Nice.
kind of
Yeah.
kind of coming home and stuff like that. I think that's about the earliest he could be coming off the board. It might actually be the best fit for him. I think honestly, Dan Morgan being a fellow, star college linebacker at FAU
Yeah.
and played for the Panthers, I think that matters. David Tepper kind of removing himself from the equation, allowing Dan
That's
Morgan
huge.
and
Huge for the program.
Dave Canellis to do their thing. I think that's huge. They need a star opposite of Bryce Young on defense. And you're from Western North Carolina. So anytime the Panthers that have been good, they've had like a Hall of Fame level
Oh
player
yeah.
on defense. That can be
Shouts
the late
Julius Peppers, baby.
Julius Peppers, the late Kevin Green, the late
Hmm.
Sam Mills, Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis. They've had players like that,
Oh yeah.
and Jalen Walker could do that. So
Agreed.
yes, I love. That's one of the ones I had on there too. I'm gonna throw like the Seahawks out there.
Oh, I like that.
Fellow UGA alum Mike McDonald's defensive-minded coach in Seattle. He knows them, obviously being in Michigan, being with Baltimore, probably has a good idea of what he wants to do here. I think moving on from Ryan Grubb puts a lot more pressure on him. It's like, okay, you really went with defense. You're really kind of punting on whatever you're doing offensively. And plus, Seattle, you never know what they're going to do. And I figure if he's still there at like 18, it'd be hard to kind of move off him. They could also take like Jackson Dart there. It's like, good luck figuring out what the Seahawks are ever going to do in the draft.
Yeah, mock drafts when you're doing picks for the Seahawks. I mean, like honestly, I've gotten to the point where I just literally take the best player available because and like they don't necessarily do that. They take their best guy available, which their board is just off the planet in terms of what I think about players. So yeah, the Seahawks are, but I mean, I do think it'd be a great fit, and I think Mike McDonald would love to have him on there. I mentioned that Jalen Walker reminds me a little of Micah Parsons. You know, it's better than one Micah Parsons, two Micah Parsons. So the
Yes.
Cowboys at 12, baby. DeMarcus Lawrence is a free agent, and they need some help on the edge. Like there's guys like Sam Williams, there's guys like I'll tell you like Chauncey Golston who can step into that rotational role, but I don't think they're full-time guys who are ready to step in and be replacements for DeMarcus Lawrence. I don't obviously they're very Jalen Walker and DeMarcus Lawrence are very different players, but if you want two guys that can just pin their ears back and make quarterbacks' lives hell, like Micah Parsons and Jalen Walker's a really good way to do that.
Okay. So I did not have the Cowboys on one. My last two or like we'll pick the better of these two between the Saints and Bucks. Which one would you rather have? Throw in discussion.
Let's go Saints just because I think
Yeah.
like the Bucks are a little bit low, like kind of like the Packers are a little bit low in
Mhm.
the draft order.
Yeah, my thing with the Saints is like they're not going to go quarterback this year. Next year, if they go quarterback, they probably go pursue Gary Nussmeier because they're going to suck.
Yeah.
They need to basically get younger over Cam Jordan. They're going to probably let Chase Young walk, and he's going to play the Eagles and probably be an All-Pro. That's just be ready for that.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things where like the Panthers pass on him and you get him, then you can use him to wreak hell on you, the Falcons, and the Bucks for the next several years.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. I like that.
And also, I kind of think that like Brandon Staley, even though he's an absolute imposter, I think he specializes in linebackers. That may be the area he wants to focus in on.
I like that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
All right, let's cross some people off. If you got to cross anybody off of the teams we mentioned between the Falcons, Panthers, Saints, Cardinals, not Cardinals, Packers, Cowboys, Seahawks. There you go. Whatever.
Seahawks.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cross the Packers off. They're just too low on the draft board, and that's like I love the fit. Maybe they trade up, but like I just don't like the Packers are not really like that type of aggressive team, so I don't really see that happening.
Yeah, that's as far as it's going to go. I'm going to cross the Seahawks again. I think they're too far down, and good luck trying to figure out what they're going to do. So,
Yeah, I don't.
with
I what I'm getting at, I don't think he makes it past the Falcons at 15 if he's there.
no, no, but that leaves us with three NFC South teams: the Falcons, the Saints, the Panthers, and your Cowboys. We got to cross one off.
I'm gonna cross the Saints off just
Yeah,
because it doesn't feel like I think it would be a good pick for the Saints. It just doesn't feel like a Saints pick.
no, I feel like they're more likely to go replace Marshawn Lattimore in the secondary.
Yeah.
Like if Will Johnson's still there, or if Travis Hunter's still somehow around, they go get him.
Yeah, no, either that or like looking at the offensive line, like I think they could be like a Will Campbell or a Kellen
Yeah,
Banks spot if one of those guys is there.
I like Will Campbell there. Bring the hometown guy there. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So Cowboys, Falcons, Panthers. I gotta cross the Cowboys off.
That's fine.
I think there's just a little bit more. They can go in a lot more different directions. They could go like running back. They could go receiver. They could go at a multitude of positions
There's
where
a
I
lot
kind
of
of
holes
feel,
in the Cowboys, brother. We can go a
yeah.
lot of different places.
Whereas I think the Panthers and the Falcons, it's like they're really honing in on this. I think the fact that the Cowboys have been tied to Mike Green out of Marshall really elevates Jalen Walker potentially going there too.
Mhm.
Again, it's all a matter of preference. I think this is probably the three teams he'd be potentially going to.
Yeah, I think these are the three best spots. So I'll let you make the final decisions. Do you think he goes to the Panthers or do you think he goes to the Falcons?
I think I think he's going to end up going to the Panthers
Okay.
because I think that the best my best theory here is whoever the Panthers don't take between Williams and Walker, the other one will go to the Falcons.
I like that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And I think with Carolina, with Dan Morgan and everything like that, they may be more willing to take a chance on them. Plus, I think there's also the thing is like if we don't take this guy and he goes to Atlanta, he's better than our guy, then we look stupid. I think they're going to be doing a lot of game theory here. Whereas the Falcons would be like, look, we like them all. We'll take whoever we get.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that this weekend we're going to see the tide really turn on Jalen Walker because dude's kind of made to tear up the combine. So
It'd be like that.
it'd be like that.
All right, let's move on to Omarion Hampton.
Oh yeah.
First, I mean, I think I've seen him like he's a top 40 player. I think he's going to end up going like in the mid to late 20s. That's about or early like 20s is where I see him coming off the board. And not Mel Kiper Jr., apparently.
Yeah, no, Mel Kiper Jr. is getting a little frisky. I am going to take a page from Mel Kiper Jr.'s book, however, with a caveat there. The Cowboys are the first team because the Cowboys obviously have a need at running back. I don't think that they take him at 12. I think that if the Cowboys are going to take Omarion Hampton, they trade back. The Cowboys don't have a fourth round pick. I think if you can trade back and recoup that fourth round pick and still get the running back that you want, if that is Omarion Hampton, that makes a lot of sense. And we've seen that like the Cowboys are not afraid to move around the draft. They're not afraid to trade. So like I think that with their need and with like the need to recoup some draft capital, I think they're a prime trade back and getting spot like trade back to like 19 if you can. Like if the Bucks really like someone at 12, like let's say Michael Williams is on the board at 12 and the Bucks really like Michael Williams. You trade back to 19, they get Michael Williams, and you jump in front of the Steelers to be able to get Omari and Hampton.
I like that. I did have the Cowboys on my list too. I think the with Mel Kiper Jr., you at least have to give that some sort of like
Yes.
there's I don't know what the word is. It's early. It's like you got to
Like
be like, yeah,
credence. Like there's
there
some
we
there's
go.
some credence you have to give to it. Yeah.
I don't know if it's clear or water or a revival, but
Oh,
we're gonna go.
it's a revival, baby.
My first choice, we're going Skull Brother. We're gonna go with the Minnesota Vikings.
I like that.
Anytime they're great, they've got a fantastic running back. They went with Aaron Jones this past year was okay. The Vikings freshman, I didn't really watch him play very much last year. Missed the Dalvin Cook of it all. Obviously, we know what Adrian Peterson, Robert Smith back in the day. They've big time players. They've always kind of I think also like you're indoors, you can speed up by being a track meet. Omarion Hampton's a very versatile back. I think it also helps you be able to win on the road in Chicago and Green Bay a little bit more. You've got the receivers, and plus you need a running back to help get the most out of JJ McCarthy. If he's got a solid running game, I don't know if the Vikings have the offensive line to protect him, but this is probably the most logical thing to help him out year one.
No, I like the Vikings a lot. It seems like they're with Aaron Jones, if they like extend him or bring him back or whatever, like they don't want him to be the full-time back. They kind of want to do a timeshare. And I think bringing in a rookie with the talent level of Omarion Hampton to be able to timeshare with Aaron Jones, that's a pretty lethal combo.
I like that. Who's your next team?
I'm gonna go with the Steelers. I do think the Steelers are absolutely in play for this. There's been some buzz that they're going to bring back Najee Harris. I just don't see it, man. Like I think he's been too disappointing for them to really consider that. Like everyone in the Steelers like fan base has pissed and moaned about how ineffective he is. And like if you're a coach, you have to see that as well. Like down to down, he's just not the player that you thought he was going to be coming out of Alabama. And sometimes you just got to cut your losses. And so I think that with the quarterback uncertainty, depending on what they do there, like you're gonna need a running game, especially with Arthur Smith still as your offensive coordinator. You're gonna need a running game, and so I think Omarion Hampton's someone who fits the bill of what they would need.
I had the Steelers listed as well. We root for two tortured NFL franchises. Honestly, Steelers are pretty damn tortured too.
Yeah, it's tough. Like they're almost like we're tortured in the way it's not even like purgatory. The Steelers are in purgatory, like just like a little bit of taste of the good stuff, but not quite ever really even close to the what like the big goals.
Like if you're talking like the levels of grief, like we're in like stages 4 and 5. They're in
Yeah,
like 2.5.
yeah, it's tough.
They still think that Mike Tomlin's going to take him to promised land, and all he's going to do is just
9-8, baby.
the Bobby Cox of the NFL.
That's right.
So yeah, I do like the Steelers as well. I think they're also a potential fit to pick Nick Chubb up. That would just make some Clevelanders really
Mm,
mad. But
yeah,
yeah, right,
definitely.
right there with you with Arthur Smith. It's ground centric. We'll see what they do at quarterback. But if they go with this, if you go with Amari and Hampton here, you're not going to get Dart. Maybe you go get Ewers in the second round.
Yeah, Ewers, Will Howard, one of those guys. I think that'd
Yeah,
make a lot of sense.
Will Howard. I'd be like Will Howard. My next team, I'm going to go with the LA Chargers.
Ooh, I like that.
This is the year they need to figure out if Justin Herbert can do it. I'm
Mm.
so tired. It's just like so much potential, so much whatever it is. Just I'm sick of it. You've been in the league for 6 years. Go be a dude. Go be a
Go
man.
be a dude. Yeah.
And then maybe this is the year where I think Jim Harbaugh is going to really push on him. Slap his shoulder pads, and this is going to be the year where Herbert becomes Dan Fouts or he breaks mentally like Andrew Luck. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But they got to get him more weapons besides Slide McConkey. Quentin Johnston's not the same thing. Moving on from Austin Eckler or whatever the heck's going on with that's not been good. Chargers could be like this is a year like they need to make the playoffs again, and they need to basically take advantage of the Chiefs potentially pulling back. Maybe the Bills, maybe the Ravens at their ceiling. This is the
Yeah.
year that they need to go for the kill. This is something where like I think that like being a little bit more balanced in offense could serve them.
No, I like that a lot because J.K. Dobbins was fine for them last year, but when he went down, which that's kind of what J.K. Dobbins does, unfortunately, he's been very injury prone since he came into the league. But when he went down, like they rolled out like the corpse of Gus Edwards and Hassan Haskins out there, and like that was not great for what the offense was
Yeah.
doing. So I think having like bringing Dobbins back and then drafting someone like Hampton makes a lot of sense for the Chargers, especially with Harbaugh as their head coach.
Yeah, and also it's like you take him. I think they're literally in an arms race with Denver, where they're
Yeah.
both like looking for the same sort of thing. Also, you know what J.K. Dobbins is short for?
No, I do not.
Just kidding, Dobbins.
Just kidding.
I'm not playing this year. All right, who's your third team up for discussion for Omarion Hampton?
I'm going with the Browns because you mentioned Nick Chubb.
Ooh,
They are losing Nick Chubb, and no, whatever they do at quarterback, I think that the Browns are a perfect Kirk Cousins team. We've talked about that briefly, but like I think Kirk Cousins is like the Browns are my preferred destination for Kirk Cousins. If you're bringing in Kirk Cousins, you need to get that running game right. I don't think Jerome Ford is necessarily the guy to carry that load. So I think the Browns, knowing how valuable Nick Chubb was to them and when he was healthy and in his prime, like I think that they try to run that back with an Omarion Hampton. And I think there's a non-zero chance he's there at 33 because they have the first pick of the second round.
that's true too. Then it's also like you cannot take him at 2, and if you trade back, that's still way too high. So like you could also potentially be getting him somewhere in the second half with an NFC team. Like if the Packers want to trade for Miles Garrett, you're drafting him at 21
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something, whatever, 24, whatever the hell they are. I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah, or like the Lions or Bill, like any of the teams that are like preferred Miles Garrett trade destinations. Like the Browns trade with any of those and get their first round pick, they're in perfect range for Omarion Hampton.
I like that. And I have the Browns listed. You've basically touched on every team. Like I had the Cowboys and the Steelers listed. I'm gonna throw the last team in here. I'm gonna throw the Washington Commanders.
Oh, I like that.
Picking late in the draft, you need to basically get a guy that's gonna, take some pressure off of Jaden Daniels,
Mhm.
probably prevent him from running so much. I know Cliff Kingsbury hails from an air raid sort of offense, but I think he likes to run the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
I think he's having a lot of fun up there. Give it about 2 years. This guy's going to be the top head coach again in the NFL, and he'll be coaching God knows where. Probably Titans because Brian
Right.
Callahan's not going to work. That's okay. But like this what Washington's really good at. I played them. We both played them last year, combined 3 times. They're really good at ball control. They
Yeah.
just sit on it. And if this is a guy that they can trust to do a lot, keep him out here multiple sets, wouldn't shock me if Washington won the division next year.
No, 100%. And like you even go back like I I don't want to rewrite history, but like you go back to the NFC Championship game with the Eagles, and I'm looking at that, and if they convert that first drive where they went 18 plays and like that ended up being a field goal, if they convert that into a touchdown, I think that game goes a lot differently.
Yeah.
Because like if you're able to march down the field with a drive that long and score, man, that's something that just really takes the wins out of the sails of the opposing defense. And so like if you can get someone who can better, like I like Brian Robinson, but Omarion Hampton is a clear upgrade from him.
I love that. All right. First team I'm going to cross off. I'm going to cross off your Cowboys. I think
Yeah.
it's just way too high. There's just way too many factors. It's going to require Ashton Genty being off the board, and you're just lusting for a running back, chasing the ghost of Zeke Elliott. It's possible, and Mel Kiper Jr. has breathed life into this, just like he's breathing into eating pumpkin pie filler in the latter part of February. But like, it's way too far fetched, man. Like, go get a Mecca Ibuka, go get Mike Green. Honestly, take Tyler Warren over him. It just, I know you love him, Marion Hampton. At 12's rich, and that's
No,
not happening.
I do not want them to take him at 12, and I think the Cowboys are going to be the first team that I crossed off. So I'm right there with you. I think that one of the misnomers about the Cowboys is that their operational dysfunction extends to the draft. It really doesn't. Like outside of the Zeke pick, you look at the positions that they've taken and where they've taken them. They don't take too many risks in the first round. Like CeeDee Lamb was probably the quote unquote biggest risk, and he was too like where they got him at 17. That was too good to pass up. Like you couldn't possibly pass that up. So I think they go wide receiver or edge in the first round, and then I think you're looking at someone like Caleb Johnson or Travion Henderson in the second round as the running back that they go after.
Trayvon Henderson sounds like such a cowboy. Just
Oh,
make it
dude,
happen.
100%. Yeah, I would be super happy about it. To be very clear, Travion Henderson's very damn good at football.
100%. So between the Chargers, Vikings, Commanders, Steelers, and Browns, who are you crossing off?
I'm gonna go Steelers just because I don't like, although I do think that they're going to be in the market to replace Najee Harris. I think that the Najee Harris of it all will probably like hold them back from drafting a running back in the first round. And that's kind of just like my very simple thought on that.
Yeah, I think that there's other things. Again, there's so many things. They go quarterback, they could go
Yeah.
receiver, they could do whatever the hell they want. Don't good, who knows what Omar Khan wants to do.
Yeah. God only knows.
I'm gonna cross off the Commanders next. I like that. I think that he might be gone before they're picking.
I think that makes complete sense. I'll
So
cross
Chargers,
off
yes, Chargers, Vikings, Browns. Who are you crossing off next?
I'm gonna cross off the Chargers just because I can see Jim Harbaugh doing it, but I can also like I think Jim Harbaugh is going to turn his eyes to the defense this year, and I think like that's kind of going to be his where he spends the premium capital because most likely this team's going to lose Joey Bosa, they're going to cut him, save $27 million on the cap, and so you retain Khalil Mack, and you kind of need to reshape that defense a little bit because I think that it's getting a little bit older and there's going to be defensive talent in that range that you can't really pass up. So I think like that or if Tyler Warren falls to the Chargers, Tyler Warren
Yeah,
is a Charger.
yeah. I don't see him making it past like the Chargers or like the Broncos.
Yeah, 100%.
So between the Vikings and Browns, those are both pretty good.
Yeah.
I think just I would probably put him on the Vikings just because I think it's more logical that he goes there. And
Yeah.
that's it.
I I'm gonna put him on the Vikings just because I don't want to see him be wasted by the Browns, quite frankly.
You know, maybe. If he went 33, that's like what Chubb went to back in like 18,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah, I think Chubb went 34. So like it would be right in the same ballpark.
So congratulations to Jalen Walker. You're playing for your home state's Carolina Panthers, and congratulations to Omarion Hampton for going to the Vikings and not the Browns.
Yeah, that big win. The family's very happy about that. Minnesota's beautiful.
Minnesota, if you have, yeah, they're the Twin Cities. There's two of them, but if there was like another set of Twin Cities, it's like two. It's it's like the Quad Cities down there in like Illinois and Iowa. So yeah, where John Deere's from, apparently.
That's right, Moline, baby.
Moline baby and Don Nelson. Yeah.
That's right.
And I hope that like their area code is this. It's 444, but I
That's
don't think it
right.
is.
I don't think so, but it should be.
That'd be amazing. So moving on to 444. Bill Connolly put out one of our favorite articles of the offseason, give credit to Alicia de Artilo Castillo to bring it to mind. Just returning production across college football. There's 136 teams now, I believe, with
Yep.
Delaware and Missouri State moving up, both joining CUSA. So we're going to look at each of the Power Four leagues and be like, okay, what team that's got a lot of returning production is good, and what team that's not returning a lot of production is bad.
Yeah.
Okay, does that make sense, everybody? I
Yeah.
don't care. It
No,
doesn't
I
matter.
think it does. I think we're good.
All right, ACC, where does returning production matter the most for you?
Oh, it's Clemson, man.
Yeah.
It's got to be Clemson. Like, based on how they ended last season, I don't think there's any way you can look at Clemson and think that them bringing back what they are, like I believe they're top in the country, if I'm not mistaken. Like, they are the highest returning production team. And for Clemson, with their lack of usage in the transfer portal, even this year, like as they have started to dip their toes in, like with their overall lack of usage, returning production matters to them because their strategy is recruit and develop. And the fact that you're bringing this back means that they have a lot of guys that they've been developing.
I mean, Clemson was ranked number one with a bullet here. I don't know if Davis, when he knows who Fall Out Boy is or cares, because he only listens to jock jams and this is false start, but it's undeniably Clemson. Clemson's going to be like, I think you and I would be like, honestly, I'd probably pick them like third of anybody to win a national championship
Yeah.
this year. Then they might do it. And we're gonna win because like if they win a national championship, we're right. And if they don't, then we don't like Clemson. And
Yeah, it's an emo hedge if nothing else.
hell yeah, brother. The other team I would throw up there because I had Clemson number one with a bullet, Georgia Tech. I think that's
Yeah,
significant too.
definitely.
Losing
I will say with Georgia. Oh, you're probably about to say the same thing I'm about to say, so go ahead.
losing Tyler Santucci
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
But like this is a team that's talent laden, they're believing in stuff. It's that people are really buying into Brent Key. The fact that like they're playing the dogs at the Benz and not Bobby Dodd, maybe they've got a chance, but they've had a miserable time facing Georgia in Atlanta. But Georgia Tech is like again right there, maybe just kind of beyond the SMU, Miami, and Louisville in the ACC. We think Georgia Tech can be very good.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%.
Where's it bad in the ACC?
It's bad in Syracuse, New York,
Yeah.
brother.
So-
Buddy. They are near the bottom of this list, and yeah, Kyle McCord's probably a big part of that. LaQuint Allen's a big part. Like Fran Brown's got a hell of a job to replace what he lost last year, and I think that we talk about Indiana really pulling back from what they did last year based on what they're losing. Syracuse is kind of like the B plus version of that, man. Like I think that this team could be fighting for bowl eligibility, not like near the top of the ACC standings.
They win like 8 games. I mean, Fran Brown's like it's unbelievable. Like I didn't think he was going to be anywhere near this good. I think getting Ellis Robinson from A&M to be like your defensive coordinator and ace guru, like giving Syracuse an identity. This is fun. This is basically back like in the early 2000s, late 90s when it was like Donovan McNabb and
Yeah.
Troy Nunes. Like this is fun, but it's not going to be fun for them this year. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still high on their long-term prospects.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I like this is not me just like disparaging the Syracuse program. It just might be a tough 2025.
Yes. And the other team I'll throw in there, that was like a number one. I would say Wake Forest is in a really bad spot.
Yeah, yeah. I looked at them too.
I like Jake Dickert going over there. It's probably one of my favorite hires. But again, the Dave Clawson era was so seminal, so important to this team. Probably the best coach in program history. Just a well entrenched identity of like, stay here as long as you can. You're redshirting. You're playing all 4 years. This is kind of like what happened with like Arkansas when like we're
Mhm.
changing like we're gonna go heavy with Brett Bielema. Then we're gonna go really fast with Chad Morris, and you just get churned up.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time to get it right, but they got to be patient here. It's going to be a very rough year for the Deacs.
No, yeah, it's not going to be great.
Big Ten, I'll start with the most obvious one, Illinois. Illinois is going to be really good.
Yeah, I also had Illinois there, and I don't think you're really gonna argue with, man. They're going to be good. Like they were a 9-win team last year, and you're returning, I believe it was like 70 something percent of your production. So like, yeah, you're in a good spot if you're Illinois. If you're Illinois, I'm not you, so I didn't do two. So let me go ahead and just take a look-see daisy here.
That's fine. I knew you were going with that. There's the two that that I considered were Michigan State, Michigan. I think that matters. I think that's my backup was Michigan State because I jumped again. I literally fall straight on here. But
No, actually, you know who I'm gonna go with? I'm gonna go with Rutgers because we
okay,
saw Rutgers make some noise and they're returning more than 70% of their production, still in the top 10 in the country. And like when you look at what Greg Schiano has done, it's kind of like they don't have the ability to go get the high level transfer. So when Rutgers brings in a transfer, it's normally to just fill a spot. And the fact that you're returning this much production means you were able to retain a good bit of your talent. And I think under Schiano, that's a very important thing.
I think the reason I didn't have them there is I don't think they necessarily have the highest ceiling,
Yeah.
but I think that Shannon knows that program. Like they have a really strong identity. They've got people from like the Northeast, particularly New Jersey, staying in state playing for this guy. This I don't think they say he's a cult hero. He's just a hero. He's just one of them.
Yeah, he's just a guy, man.
Um, I think the fact they're returning like 80% offense when he's a defensive guy, that's significant. I think
hmm
this Rutgers could be I don't know if they're going to be playoff caliber, but like they'll be as good as like what Illinois was last year, maybe.
Maybe like even a step down, but like they'll like I think that they are primed to upset someone in the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, they'll be like Iowa is most years.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's good. Where's it bad in the Big Ten?
Brother, it's bad in Maryland. Oh, my bar boy Locks is hurting out here, man. It's not good for him. I think the biggest thing, and like, all these returning production numbers need context always. Like we talked about Virginia Tech's returning production last year, and they were dog water. Like sometimes returning production is not a good thing. With Maryland, man, you're the returning production you're losing is basically what made you passable as a football team last year. You lost Billy Edwards to Wisconsin. Like that's tough. Billy Edwards played really damn good last year, replacing Talia to Tagovailoa. And so like you lost like basically your entire wide receiver core with for someone like Locks, like basically having to rebuild this entire offense, that's really tough.
I consider them too. I'm not really high on Maryland. It's really bad in Purdue. I'm not going to pile on. That's just a different situation. I hope Barry Odom's going to upset somebody, but it's going to be a really tough year there with whatever the hell Ryan Walsh is to death thing.
Yeah, it's gonna be like one of the worst loss a contender takes this season, like is
Oh
to
no.
Purdue.
It's not good for USA.
No, it's not.
I think it's like it basically again, I was all in on USC being good last year. Like this, that was the team. Like 2 years ago, was all about your Cowboys. And like I'm going to be all in on a team I usually am not on, and then they burned me. I'm never going back.
Yeah.
And I don't know who that team is this year in the NFL or college football. I may have my idea about that, but like yeah, USC burned me bad. I think the big issue with them is like the guys that Lincoln Riley is recruiting aren't staying,
Yeah.
and I think
100%.
it's like a and maybe, you maybe talk about the whole fact it's a little too self-serious. I think bringing in Rob Ryan, who thinks he's an orange at this point, like I think that's great. I think Danton Lynn's really doing great things with defense, but like eventually he's going to get his own job and leaves, and we'll see what happens in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I'm like I looked at USC. My one thought was things got so bad last year that I wonder there's at least a part of me that can talk myself into the idea that maybe losing some of the production you had last year isn't the worst thing because like you need like wholesale changes to really kind of get this going in the right direction. But I'm not sure they brought in enough talent for that to actually be the case.
That's true. Moving on to the Big 12.
ASU is
Yeah.
top, man. I mean, like, I was actually shocked to see how high they were on this list because, like,
hmm
there's been so much talk about losing Cam Scatabo that, that kind of seems to what people are focusing on. But it's not just Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson that are returning. Like, you're returning a lot on this defense. You're returning a lot on the offensive line. Like, I think that Arizona State is in a much better position than I think a lot of people realize because, Scotabo was kind of like the figurehead for that team last year. Because you're losing him, like you think, oh, this team's taking a step back. Well, Kanye Udo may not be the exact same level of player, but he's still going to be a good running back, and you expect Sam Levitt to take a step forward as a passer. So when you have those two things, the offense should be just as good. The defense should be pretty similar to what they were last year. Like Arizona State's not going anywhere.
I'm also of the belief for as long as Marcus Arroyo is on their staff, they're going to be this
Mhm.
because he got a raw deal at UNLV, really
Yeah.
well thought of guy on Oregon. Maybe that's kind of where he and Dillingham cross paths, but like he's going to be a Power Four coach at some point.
Yeah.
And again,
And he should
like
be. Absolutely
yeah,
should be.
Arizona State's the obvious choice. The other one I would say is Texas Tech,
Yeah.
just because
100%.
Baron Morton Salt. Again, I think people are really buying into what Joey McGuire is. He is the ultimate CEO type, shaking babies, kissing hands, and everything like that. There were moments last year where Texas Tech were like, oh yeah, maybe they might be able to do it, but like the Texas Tech of it all, where like it's like a little bit of paper tigers and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I do love seeing them beat like the snot in West Virginia regularly. It's
Oh yeah.
great.
It's it's
It's one of,
it's it's one of life's great pleasures.
yeah, but then it's also like Baylor's also really high too. I think one of them is going to be potentially, vying for a spot in Arlington. I just don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah.
One of them will pull back, but I think Texas Tech, again, they were the original Sat Cometa.
They were indeed, and it's almost becoming that shaking babies and kissing hands is complimentary these days. So, shouts to Joe McGuire for flipping the narrative.
The Matador.
That's right.
Where's it bad in the Big 12?
I'm gonna stay on this train, man. Colorado, like the
Yeah.
returning production you're losing there has me worried, especially because of how they replaced a lot of that production. Like, not sure you replaced the wide receiver core where you're losing four guys who were pretty big contributors for you there. And then I think that Caden Salter and Shedeur Sanders are a very different level of player. And so, like, when you look at that, and then you look at the defense, which lost some guys as well, they're bringing, like, I do think that the defense is actually, weirdly enough, going to be Colorado's strength because of how good they are up front. They retained a lot up there. But overall, I got this confirms to me that Colorado has taken a big step back this year.
I had them as well. The other team I've got is Oklahoma State. I think that
Yeah.
like losing Ollie Gordon, losing Alan Bowman, even though the team was terrible, they put in a lot of games. I mean, that
Yeah.
was the team 2 years ago that was playing for a Big 12 championship, being ranked
Yeah.
and everything like that. I think there's a chance that like midway through October, like Gundy's gonna forget he's got a game and they're gonna call him where he's like, I'm hunting rabbits or something like that. It's like you want to come, he's like, I'd rather just quit. Like, he
Yeah.
just I don't really necessarily know if Mike Gundy's gonna be long for Stillwater. He's been there for 20 years. He's been a fantastic coach. He's a Hall of Fame level head coach. I just think the Big 12 and the game itself has just changed. I think he's tired, man.
Yeah. No, 100%. My guy's got some dark circles under his eyes these days.
Is that from getting gored by a bull?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
All right, then moving on to the SEC. Where's it good?
Florida, man. Like you look at this returning production from Florida, and the context around it is going into last season, and why a lot of people were sour on Florida is you lost a lot of your key contributors. You lost Princely, let me see, Uma. I'm not even gonna try. Princely U, who's going to be like a top 50 pick in the NFL draft, and like you lost a bunch of guys who were going to be like kind of your veteran stars on that team, and so that meant you had a really young team. And the fact that we watched that young team get better and better as the year progressed and then become like actually good and dangerous at the end of the season, and you're bringing a lot of that back. And on top of that, you supplemented it with a really strong recruiting class and a really strong portal class. Florida's going to be really good this year.
Yes, Florida's in a group of three teams in the SEC where this matters a lot. I'll mention the other two. It's huge for Vanderbilt.
Oh yeah,
It's
100%.
because like Diego Pavia's back, another year with Clark Lea, Bart Simmons, another year with Jerry Kill. This is a team that the live dog, they upset Alabama, they almost beat Texas, they beat
Yeah,
Auburn. You're looking at a team that's believing in itself, and I'm pulling for the team making a bowl game because this can sustain like
yeah,
to some degree. Like this is like anytime like Northwestern's good, anytime Duke's good, anytime Wake Forest is good. It's a very older, upper class, senior laden team with a lot of experience.
yeah.
There's just not a lot of players like that, and I think Vanderbilt's kind of taking advantage of the situation where other teams are not. I'd also say Auburn, this helps too.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because Auburn is almost like the production that Auburn lost is kind of the production that you'd want Auburn to lose.
Yes, 100%. Where's the bad in the SEC?
Where is it bad in the SEC? That's Ole Miss, brother. I don't think there's any like I was trying to find another answer because Ole Miss is so obvious, but like there wasn't anyone who had convictions about besides the Rebels, honestly. And like when I look at the Rebels, like we know what they lost. You lost Jackson Dart, you're losing Trey Harris, you're losing Juice Wells, you're losing a boatload of guys, Walter Nolan, Princely U on defense. Like Chris Paul, or Pooh Paul as he was listed at the combine because that's his nickname is Pooh. Pooh Paul. But you're losing so much from this team. And I do think that Lane has done a good job replacing it in the transfer portal. But we've seen in college football that's not a sustainable thing. And so like last year was your chance and you didn't take advantage of it.
It's very clearly Ole Miss. Just I'm excited about Austin Simmons. I'm excited to see what happens with it. But like they were all in on last year. They didn't get it done. They're going to pull back. There's a lot of teams returning a bunch of production in the SEC. For the record, teams like Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State, it doesn't matter that they're not returning a bunch. It doesn't. They're
No,
loaded.
they're always near the bottom of this. Like that's what happens with these programs.
The team that I had in here is the same sort of thing where I think it matters a little bit, like Oregon, and that would be Tennessee.
I can see that. Yeah, because I think like let me look at the numbers. Most of it's got to be on the defensive side of the ball, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it might actually be more offensive heavy a little
Really?
bit.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah. So like
49% offense. Okay. Yeah, well, you know, given how big of a role Dylan Sampson played on that offense, that does make
yeah,
some sense.
that makes some sense too. It's like Tennessee or Arkansas, but like at that point, like are we really expecting that much out of Arkansas? We might be
Yeah.
expecting more out of Tennessee, and this may let people down. So that was a fun exercise. We kind
Yeah.
of looked at data and did brain things.
Yeah. And didn't have to do math, which is the best part.
No, and all I need you to do now is answer a question. Let's move on to some do Hast or do Hast.
Oh, baby. My favorite.
Will Shedeur Sanders suffer a mighty draft day fall like Aaron Rodgers did 20 years ago? The Mel Kiper Jr. kind of compared him to that, where like he thinks that there's some personality stuff. There's also a lot of really good young quarterbacks. He compared the 24 recruiting or quarterback class, where our team's got a guy, Drake May and Michael Penix, being similar to what it was in '04 with like Rivers and Manning and Big Ben.
Yeah.
So that I think it's a very interesting question. I was like trying to write this for Mark Powell. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, man? I'll do it, but I don't know what you're talking about.
Mostly we don't know what the hell Mel Kiper's talking about because I'm due
No.
Haas two S's with this. I just don't see it happening. Like, I think there are too many teams that are in bad quarterback situations for this to possibly work out that way. Like, frankly, I have a hard time seeing him slip past the Raiders at six. Like,
Yeah.
that's just like in my heart of hearts, like I just don't see anything beyond that happening. But if that were to happen, there's going to be a litany of teams who would be willing to trade up for him. Whether you're talking about a team like the Steelers, like if Shedeur Sanders gets to like the 10 range, the Steelers are trading up for him. I would bet the house on that. No matter what they do, veteran option at quarterback, I think that they would be aggressive to go get that guy because they seem to want someone young to kind of usher in this future. I honestly, when I look at Shedeur Sanders, I don't see like I understand why people are going to create the narrative of character problems. I really don't think there's many character problems with Shedeur Sanders. I think he handles himself like a confident professional. Like, how many NFL athletes do we see carry themselves in the exact same way that Shedeur Sanders does? Quite a lot. And granted, they're in the pros. Most of them have proven it. But at the same time, like, I don't think anything that I've seen is a red flag. And I think that that's going to be overblown. I think he's actually going to impress a lot of people at the combine this week. And I don't see him slipping past it like 12. Like, and that's like a trade up spot. I'd like someone trades up with the Cowboys to get him at 12. Like, I think that's well within the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, I'm due Haas two S's as well because the chances of him going down to like the Steelers at 21 is just so astronomical
Yeah.
where like they're just gonna trade up. Like I want him on the Raiders so badly. I want
Yeah.
them to trade up to two with the Browns to get him.
Yeah.
And even if they don't get him, you think the Jets are not gonna take him at 7?
Yeah. Right. Like, it's,
The Saints would seriously consider taking him at 9.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you get down to like where we're picking like the 12 to 15 range. I don't think the Colts or the Dolphins have the stones to move off their quarterbacks who aren't that good. But like you're looking at 18, you go draft the Geno Smith replacement by the team that employs Geno Smith.
Yeah.
That could be good. Then you're dealing with like the Steelers down there. Trying to think who else. The Rams, like
Yeah.
potentially. Yeah, like there's I just don't see him like the potential to trade up, particularly with how badly that the Raiders got screwed last year by having Knicks go off the board, the sixth quarterback at 12 right before them, and they got Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
Tom Costello made a great pick, and he still got fired.
Yeah. Shedeur Sanders going into being able to throw to Brock Bowers right away, that's a pretty good situation. I wouldn't hate it.
No, I wouldn't either. Maybe you have Nick Chubb in there, hand the ball
Yeah,
off to him.
hell yeah.
That could be really
That's
cool.
Pete Carroll football, baby.
That's what I'm talking about, man. Yeah, a guy who resurrected Geno Smith's career. Yeah, by
Yeah,
doing that.
100%. Like
Yeah, that would be.
I forget once a day that Pete Carroll's the head coach of the Raiders. Like
It's
I'm aware of it, but like it's one of those things where like when I'm just like casually thinking about the Raiders, I don't consider Pete Carroll until like actually I start to think like harder about it.
and honestly, like Shedeur Sanders, like he's got a little bit of like the good qualities of Marcus Mariota. There actually are some where like
Oh yeah.
get the ball out quickly. Chip Kelly's gonna love that.
No, 100%. And then like adding to that, like Shedeur Sanders with kind of I like the extracurriculars of it all, if you that is a concern. Pete Carroll dealt with Russell Wilson for a long time, and I understand that Russell Wilson is wholesome, but like Russell Wilson also comes with a hell of a lot of off-field baggage and personality problems that are probably hard for a head coach to deal with. So I have no problem with Pete. I have no like concern about Pete Carroll dealing with that.
Also, I kind of feel like Shedeur Sanders, like I think he's just about football. I think he really loves this. Yet there's a lot of social media stuff, but he's not a partier.
No,
I don't like anybody in their family drinks or does
and
anything
like
like that.
he's honestly like I can't remember where I heard this comparison, but Dion is like if LeVar Ball like actually had credentials, you know what I mean? And so like that's kind of like the parent that he is. But as we've like gone through like the Ball brothers' careers and the various twists and turns that that's gone through, we've seen LeVar Ball basically as these guys become adults be forced to take a back seat as Dion like is no longer Shedeur Sanders' head coach, I actually have come to like start to believe that Dion's not going to be like this big like overarching cloud that hangs over the situation. Like I think Shedeur's going to be an adult, be out from under his dad's roof and be like, "Hey, Dad, I need you to take a step back."
I mean, the guy taking a step back loses toes. And I don't think LeVar Ball can take a step back because I don't think he has a foot anymore.
He does not. No, no.
No, no, but like also the fact that like the Raiders, it's Vegas, it's a party town. You need a serious person, serious groundhog. I think getting a guy who's kind of like that with Sanders, kind of what Derek Carr was. I mean, you can't have a Ken Stabler there, like,
Yeah, no. God, no.
yeah, I think he just fits the Rebel brand perfectly. And as far as like the personality is concerned, like doesn't matter. I think like I'm concerned about Cam Ward.
Yeah.
I think he might bust horribly.
It's possible. It's definitely possible. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would like Cam Ward to go someplace where he can wait a year before he plays, but I don't think that's going to happen.
No, if he's going to Tennessee or Cleveland or New York, or New York, yeah, good luck. I don't
Yeah,
even know if there's
you're playing.
I don't even know like where a place like he could go and wouldn't start right away. Like,
I mean, like he's not making it there, but like LA
no,
would be a really good spot for him.
yeah, but I think Shador is more pro ready in some
Yeah.
ways.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, just playing in the same offense, playing in the same sort of thing. Also, I think the fact that you're playing for a guy who's a really good NFL offensive coordinator, NFL head coach, and Pat Shermer, I think that matters. That's
No,
why they made the
absolutely.
change.
100%. He was running a pro style like system in many capacities.
Yes, I think so too. I don't know if it's a good bowl, but this is a good bowl. Moving on to our penultimate topic here. Jim Nagy has been hired by Oklahoma as GM. This is the former director of the Senior Bowl. I This has to help, right?
Oh yeah. I would hope so. I mean, it would be hard not to help. But like I do think that like Jim Nagy, just like any other draft adjacent or draft evaluator person, you're gonna have your misses, and people have highlighted a good bit of that. But I also think Jim Nagy does a really good job of highlighting that talent in his Senior Bowl days. Like I think he does a really good job of identifying players who teams might want to see. And I think like, when you translate that to college football, you can translate that to the recruiting cycle. Like, yeah, this guy might be a 3-star, but he has a lot more potential than that. This guy might be a 4-star, but I think I have him as a 5-star. And so like I think Nagy's like background in that evaluation process in terms of just inviting and knowing what NFL teams want, I think could benefit Oklahoma. I'm not sure it happens quick enough to save Brent Venables' job, but I do think
No.
that long term for Oklahoma, this is a very smart hire.
I would agree. I think that like the best way this can help is in terms of recruitment by way of the transfer portal. He's looking at players of that. I don't think he's really spent a lot of time, looking at high schoolers, figuring out how they're going to do. Maybe that's more of Venables' is bread and butter. That's what he did. Maybe, DeMarco Murray, you're going here, and you're going here,
Yeah,
and
there
you're
you
going
go.
here. I don't think you have a bad thing to say about Oklahoma. Nothing will break your soul, man.
That's right.
But yeah, I think this is like it's not like too little, too late because I don't think Venables is going to make it past 2 years from now,
Yeah.
and I don't think when he goes, Joe Castiglione goes too. It's like this is just bad. Also, that could be really challenging there if Oklahoma doesn't make the men's tournament with a big gamble there with not big gamble, but like a big swing higher with Porter Moser, and it's like they're right there on the fence.
Yeah, it's not things are not great in Norman. Like Norman's not a place I want to be unless I want to get like severely drunk right now.
You mean I'm not in Oklahoma City? You were a few minutes ago. You fell asleep in your Uber.
Who among us hasn't done that?
uh the sidetrack. So the Arizona State podcast and we were watching a movie. It's called A Real Pain. It stars Kieran Culkin. It's directed by
Okay.
Jesse Eisenberg. He's in it. They play like two Jewish cousins that go to like Warsaw to go visit like, where their like grandmother was hanging out and stuff like that.
Okay.
And it's just basically Kieran Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg. And
I mean, I'm sold personally.
there's a point there where like Kieran Culkin just lets Jesse Eisenberg fall asleep on the train and they miss their stop. And Kieran's like, no, you gotta run back on there and say you're going to the bathroom so you don't see the conductor. He just keeps going, then they make their way up to first class. And they made everybody in their travel group wait an hour because they over missed their train.
Oh my God. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely watch it. I think it's on Hulu if you've got
Okay.
that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I need to check that out. I'm a big Jesse Eisenberg guy.
Yes, the Facebook guy, the Lex Luthor guy. He did not take his Indiana University hat off at all.
No, never, never.
Uh,
If you've never seen it, Adventureland, that's one of my favorite movies. Him and
okay.
Kristen Stewart has a Ryan Reynolds like small part in it, but that's a really good movie.
Also, like, well, Zombieland's like top
Oh
tier for
yeah,
me all the time.
Zombieland's
So,
good.
he's Columbus. He's the quintessential drinking Mountain Dew in his dorm room. That's where I get that from.
100%.
The Arizona State podcast, and they're like, okay, what's the city in Ohio that like Kieran Culkin would be?
City in Ohio that Kieran Culkin would be. Having not seen the movie and just knowing what I know about Kieran Culkin, he gives me big he gives me big Dayton vibes.
That's what I said.
Yeah, hell
Dayton.
yeah.
Yeah, Dayton. He's just Dayton, man.
He's just Dayton. I don't know.
Or he's not big enough to be Centerville. He's not big enough to be AJ Hawk
Yeah, exactly. No, he doesn't have a big enough head.
or he doesn't have like massive Ohio State Kirk Herbstreit energy.
Right.
Also, could you imagine Kirk Herbstreit and AJ Hawk as like cousins in a Zombieland?
Oh my God. I mean, I need it now, personally.
AJ's like, these hands don't work, so this one's a chainsaw now. uh, and Pat McAfee is the Woody Harrelson.
Oh yeah, 100%. Just slamming Twinkies.
Slamming Twinkies. Oh my God, Yinzer. Just
Oh yeah, 100%.
let's go, boys. Oh man, but yeah, I think Jim Nagy is going to be very helpful to Oklahoma. They've got a lot of returning talent, but again, that's one of the ones like Stanford that's up there. Like I don't really buy.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And now we're going to move on to our last topic. This is about Stanford. Interesting way to round out this show. I want to hear your thoughts on there. Their longtime athletic director, Bernard Muir, is retired or resigning after 13 years. This is a guy that won like what eight or 10 directors cups over 13 years, and he feels compelled to resign. And I think it goes to show like just the debacle of the collapse of the Pac-12 going to the ACC. It doesn't matter how many medals like Katie Ledecky wins. You're not winning diddly poo on the hardwood with the men, and your football team is the most anonymous Power Four team in the country right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, we are with conference realignment. One of the things that people worried about was the further devaluing of the non-revenue sports, which essentially means not football or basketball at this point. Like, baseball turns in a little bit of revenue, which I don't think Stanford's a powerhouse there either. So, but like, you're talking about the main two, it's football and basketball, and Stanford just hasn't competed there. They competed a lot of like at an extremely high level at a lot of other sports, but like at this current juncture of college sports, those non-revenue sports are not going to buoy you in the same way, especially when you're Stanford and now you're having to like it would be very interesting to see what the Stanford athletic travel budget looks like now, because I'm sure it's exponentially higher than it was before. Like, you are now further disadvantaged if you're Stanford. You were already a program that didn't have, in terms of the revenue sports, you did not have the buy-in, the infrastructure that a lot of other teams that even in the Pac-12 do. And now you're in the ACC, your expenses have gone up and you still have the same lack of buy-in. Like, it's a really tough spot to be in, and like, frankly, it might just be too much work for Muir to like consider even doing at this point.
I mean, like Stanford swimming, we know all about that.
Mhm.
Stanford swim and dive, I mean, they have got countless Olympians. And I would say in the ACC, from what I know, like my former swim coach went to Virginia Tech,
Yeah.
so I know that they do really well in that thing. But it's like, even though it's cool, probably getting them in the same pool or whatever, like that's a long way from Palo Alto
Yeah,
to
exactly.
Roxbury, Virginia.
Like, it's not that it's not good competition, it's just that it's not financially feasible, honestly.
100%. The last thing I kind of wanted to mention here with this, besides like it did come across very quickly. Pete Thamel just said it didn't really give like any reasons for it.
Yeah.
Stanford like also had it like they brought like Andrew Luck in there as like the team GM or something like that, and then Muir's out. Like I don't know if Luck probably didn't overlap with Muir at Stanford, maybe very, very briefly,
Yeah.
but like it's like you bring in like the best thing you have for your football program, and then like you're gone, and then it's also like okay, maybe the Troy Taylor hire isn't going to work.
Yeah, I think this is bad news for Troy Taylor for sure. And I I do think there's at least a non-zero chance that this could be beneficial for Stanford, because like you look at Muir, and that's someone who's ran the athletic department a certain way for a long time. And with the way college sports has changed over the past couple of years, that way obviously is not viable. So maybe you have to bring someone in who has new ideas. Like, I would love to see them get someone from like, honestly, you look at kind of like the Vanderbilt range, like someone who like you look at the Vanderbilt program, like that basketball team is making noise, probably going to make the NCAA tournament. You had the football team with Diego Pavia making a bowl game, but also like having some seminal moments of the college football season, upsetting Alabama. Like, Vanderbilt's headed in the right direction despite the disadvantages that they face, and like maybe like Stanford surely has more disadvantages that they're facing, but someone who has like the creative thought process to figure out how to level the playing field a little bit.
100%. I'm trying to look this guy's name up here. He's a coach. He's the quarterback before Andrew Luck and Harbaugh. He's got a very interesting first name. He's kind of a coach. I feel like you got to bring. God, I'm blanking on his name. It's not on here. I'm looking at a slideshow from FanSided back in the day. Shout out Brad Weiss. I can't find it. But like I'm up here like okay, yeah, he's not as good as like John Elway or John Brody or like Trent Edwards or Andrew Luck. It's not going to be on there, but there's a guy that was there in between like Trent Edwards and Andrew Luck that I'm blanking on his name. He's a coach. I feel like you got to get a guy in there who's like an alum of the university to kind of really bring in what
Yeah.
matters. I don't think Luck needs to do it. Honestly, Richard Sherman, come on down, brother.
That honestly, that's not a bad idea at all.
Because I don't know, I feel like David Shaw just kind of ran out of energy with all this, and now he's seems to be re-energized working for the Broncos in some sort of front office role. But like, yeah, Stanford's got to do something. This is not good for the football team. Stanford may win one game next year.
Yeah, it's not going to be good. Are you thinking of Randy Fasani?
No, he's got an
Okay.
interesting first name. We'll figure that out
Uh,
after the show.
oh yeah, we'll update the starters next week.
Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, it's good vibes, I guess, for Oklahoma, and not so good vibes for
Yeah,
Stanford. With we do more than shoot hoops and turn left. We also don't care no more.
that's
So
right.
yeah, we're gonna have to do a little bit of time crunch here, but yeah, this was episode 154 of Fall Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter, the X, at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle20. You can follow the show at CFB Fall Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Give us a 5-star review. You pull that out, from your heart, out of your jacket and everything like that. 5 stars are best of wearing a flannel. Like if you give us a 5-star review and say I wore flannel and I give you a 5-star review, then that's like a 10-star
Yeah, I
review.
was about to say that counts as at least seven, maybe 10. Like, who knows?
Yeah, 10 5 stars. That's essentially what Texas's recruiting class is every year, or
That's
A&M's.
right.
They don't actually win.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. Hopefully you guys win this weekend and do more, have a better use of your time and have a little more fun than some people do at Stanford.
Yeah, that would be ideal. Stanford not doesn't seem like a great time right now. Not the ideal destination.
Well, we're straight up having a good time here, and this is False Start.